Hey, and welcome back to the Fully Booked Photographer. And if you're listening to this podcast this week, it is January 8th or after. So we decided that this would be a great date to talk about what we learned in 2023 that we're going to deploy in our businesses in 2024. So Jonathan, if there was one thing, Jonathan, just one thing that you learned in 2023 that you could wave a magic wand, Jonathan, and deploy in your business in 2024, what would that be?
You need a lot of practice. But what I will say is that my original vision for this particular podcast was to interview Janine and see a review of her business for 2023, because I know she had a wild year. But we'll do that another day. So I want more than one thing. Because the first thing I realized is that I'm a time traveler. But anyway, we won't go into that. The second thing that I realized and learned in 2023 that's vital is that there's a balance between action and inaction. So for me, action is always better than inaction. That's what I've learned. But it comes with an asterisk or a caveat. And for me, that is doing for the sake of doing is pointless unless you understand the why behind it and the strategy behind it. But not doing is also pointless because you can't get results and you don't move anywhere, you just stay stagnant. So understanding it's important to take daily, stop pointing at your owl.
No, I was through.
Behave yourself. It's important to take action daily towards your vision, towards your mission, towards the quarterly goals, the monthly goals, the weekly goals, the daily goals you've set. But you have to understand the why of doing it. There has to be an underlying why for doing a certain thing. It's like we see with photographers that we train initially, the ones that first come in or who haven't engaged yet and who are getting ready to run their Facebook ads. And they pick something and it's kind of like, why the F did you pick that? It's looking for like these magic pills or magic bullets or magic solutions to short-term problems without thinking about what's the long-term strategy. Okay, so if I don't launch it today, I'm going to launch it tomorrow or the next day. Fine, 2 days isn't going to have a huge knock-on effect to my 1 year plan, right? But when you think about photographers, they'll do something like they've never photographed teams in their life and they'll see Janine crushing it with her wizards or whatever, and it's like, oh, I'm going to do wizards. Yippee, yippee, yippee. And there's no like baseline underlying strategy behind it all. Whereas when you understand what you're trying to achieve, like Janine knows what she's trying to achieve for her business. Like she knows that her evergreen offer, the offer she's going to photograph week in, week out, not every day of the week, but almost every day of the week consistently. She has deep dived into her client journey and client experience for that evergreen offer of first birthdays. And she's constantly working on improving it. And that's her base strategy. So then, and that's linked to her why as well, as we know from previous podcasts and what Janine shared with us. But, it's not that Janine just thought, first birthdays, I can make loads of money. I'm going to run a marketing campaign for first birthdays, try and get bookings. And you see photographers running, okay, today I'm running wizards, tomorrow I'm running boudoir, the next day I'm running pets. And it's like, oh, sacre bleu. And Brad's the same. For his studio's boudoir. Boudoir is his evergreen offer. But there's an underlying strategy and why behind it. So what I'm trying to say is that the biggest lesson for me is that you have to take action, because most people don't take any action. And I've been in that boat before where I haven't done anything. But you have to not take action for an immediate short-term gain, in my opinion. You have to have a longer-term mission. Otherwise, you're not looking to create a sustainable business. You're looking for, miracles. And you might pull off the occasional miracle. You might not. But you have to know the why behind every action, and you have to take action. That was a big learning for me from 2023.
So I'm really, really, really happy that I've converted one of the three of you to be an owl. Welcome.
No, that's not being
Welcome.
early. It's
I'm
having
joking.
balance.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm
You have to
winding
have
you up.
It's like the Sith and the Jedi. Like there's a balance point. The perfect Force user exists somewhere in between those two religions, if you want to call them that.
Oh, now there's a debate. The balance is in the middle, so it's not just black or white, there's a grey.
There's always a grey.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about how Star Wars mimics religion. That would be a great podcast too.
Yeah, we could talk about that another day. So Brad, for you, 2023 versus, what was the biggest learning for you in 2023 that you're going to try and use in 2024 to achieve what you want to achieve?
Nothing strategic, Ronan. Fortunately, I learned how to be happy in 2023, which is a big uptick for myself. So I'm taking that into 2024.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, were you very unhappy, or were you always happy? Was you just wanted to be happier, or what? Just tell us a little bit about it.
You got to spend lots of time with me. That's what made him happy.
No. No. I've for many decades, I always believed happiness was fleeting, and happiness was in moments. And I would have prolonged periods of time. Not that I was unhappy. I'm not depressive or sad, but I would often feel I was a failure. I never celebrated myself. I never celebrated successes because I thought that's what fools did. I didn't want to be a fool. I didn't want to celebrate too early. I had to get my head down. I had to keep working. I had to work towards something bigger. And that something bigger I never achieved. I was always multiple levels beyond what my goals were. I always dreamt big. Then ultimately it was throughout the course of this year that I realized that, well, yeah, I'm not, I'll be 30 next year. So I always had envisions of the man I wanted to be when I was 30. And in fairness, I'm about 80% there. In fairness, 95%. I pretty much nailed it. It's quite funny looking back and looking at that and being happy for what I have achieved. Was quite astounding for me. It was nice to flip that from looking at what I wanted and not being appreciative for what I had. So I'm very appreciative for what I have now.
It's that. What book did we read this year? Celebrate the Gain, not the Gap. The Gap and the Gain. That was a really good book from that perspective, wasn't it? About most of us are wired to look at the gap. What are we missing rather than what we've achieved. And that change in mindset, it's made you happier.
Oh yeah, infinitely. It's wonderful. I'm more confident. I've never particularly had issues with. I did years ago, but I worked on it. But it's made me more confident in scenarios revolving other business owners. In particular, I know who I am. I'm much better now. I'm confident in my ability. I don't have imposter syndrome. That's gone.
That's so tell me about this happiness then. So how does it manifest itself? Like have Ruth and your parents or people close to you notice that you're happier?
No idea.
Okay.
But possibly not.
But you're more at peace with yourself and your happiness, and you're happier and you're celebrating your success. And
I am, yes. Yeah. Maybe. I'll ask them. Historically, I've had 2 weeks of happiness every year. The 2 weeks I got to spend in Florida. And my parents would often call that holiday, Brad. And they would look forward every year to spend time with holiday, Brad.
So you're going to ask them.
So I will ask them if holiday, Brad, has more presence now. Yeah.
I like it. I didn't notice that you were happier this year than last year, the year before? I always thought you were always pretty upbeat. But you obviously didn't feel that yourself.
Well, no, I mean, I've always been a diehard optimist. I always like to look for opportunities and success, but I suppose I always had the niggling in the back of my head that I wasn't doing enough, that I wasn't enough, that I should be doing more, I should be better. And perhaps that came from insecurities about how I viewed myself, perhaps, and that's all been eradicated. So yeah, I'm not looking over on the guy over there who's achieved X amount in X amount of time, and he's younger than me. That used to drive just fury within me. I used to hate looking at other posts of people being successful. That just used to drive envy within me. But yeah, I suppose it's the death of the bad part of my ego is what I've said goodbye to. Because I strongly believe ego is incredibly important if you want to be successful. Because ultimately, ego is how you view yourself. That's it. And I like to think that I've killed my bad ego and just got my good ego to move forward with.
While you're on the subject of that interesting book for our listeners, so I read this back in, I must have been 22 or 23 when I read it, so 8 or 9 years ago, potentially. And it's written by a guy called Ryan Holiday. The book is called, he's written many books now, but the first book he wrote is called Ego is the Enemy. And it's kind of written from a perspective of irony, because at the age of 23, Ryan was like the chief marketing officer for a multi-billion-dollar company. And the book is really fascinating. Highly recommend reading it. But he's like achieved incredible success at such a young age. Like people who were in his position in similar companies were in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And he had done it at 23, 24. And his perspective on ego as the enemy, it was fascinating. Just while you mentioned ego, that popped up.
I haven't read that book, but I did want to deep dive into what Brad just said. If we could, Brad. So when you're talking about ego and ego is a reflection of ourselves, right? But often we see people who we say, they're doing that just for everyone to think they're successful. For you, where's the line between the external ego and the internal ego?
What, like going into the realms of faking it before you make it?
Or just faking it till you never make it.
Yeah, I've never faked it before I made it. I rarely even show that I've made it now. But I was thinking about this earlier, in that the opportunities I have now are fantastic. And I wouldn't have had them if I was still attached to my ego, thinking about myself, because I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing that. I was on stage recently at an event, even briefly, to get interviewed about my own wealth journey. I wasn't even expecting that. That was a real last minute invitation I got to sit myself there. And if that was a year ago, that would have freaked me out to no end, because I wouldn't have felt like I deserved to be sat there in front of this room. But I actually should have been there. And subsequently, after that, I've had people who were in that event reach out to me to have conversations with me about their own independent wealth journey. So I've actually helped people, albeit in that really little aspect of it. So it's interesting. Because it's that battle between self-belief and reckless self-belief. I'm at the point now where I believe in myself, and I think that I deserve to be where I am. I don't have to. Whereas before, I used to rely on my ego more as a crutch to make me feel more secure.
It's really interesting you should say that.
That makes sense.
Something's just come back to me that my father said to me, 30 years ago. And it was some conversation came up about why did you always stay running your business, which is a small business, right? When there was CEOs that were friends of his who were running multinationals saying, would you come work for us? And I remember saying, so why? Like, well, why did you choose not to take those opportunities? And he said, well, it's like this. He says, you can be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond, but no matter what size fish you are, there's always a bigger one. And that's just come back to me now from what you just said, Brad, in terms of if you're always just chasing someone else or you think that they're doing better than you, and often it might be just a facade, but that they're doing better than you, that you'll never be happy, because even if you get to where they are, there'll be somebody else who now you want to be. And until you get there, you're not going to be happy. And when you get there, there'll always be someone else you want to be, if that's your driver. So it's interesting, but I think we should do a podcast on this balance, because I think for me, there's a conflicting here thing about inspiration too. You know, when you see somebody who's inspirational and you say, wow, you know, they're inspirational, I'd love to be like them. There's that thing too. It'd be a fascinating podcast. My mind is exploding right now. Janine, so what did you learn from 2023 that you're going to make sure you deploy in 2024 to make sure that you continue your journey to your definition of success?
Well, my two that I'm bringing into today's podcast are much more I was thinking very practically. And so for me, two of them was to, one, never take the pedal off of marketing. And, you know, and that's not something I learned. It's just something that I witnessed the effect of. And 2023 was truly the first year where I never took the pedal off of marketing. There was never a break in it. And it really exploded the business this year. And so that's definitely something I'm going to continue in 2024. And it's something I'm going to preach over and over again, along with Jonathan and Brad, to our members, that you never take the pedal off your marketing. And when you do, good things happen. Even if you have days where your marketing doesn't seem like it's working, you know, and it's the discipline that we have to keep that mindset of marketing every day. And when you do that and you're always working on your marketing every day, the pedal stays to the metal, is when the leads and the bookings and the sales come through. So that's number one. And I'm going to take that into 2024. The other is very practical for me because it's fresh in my mind in this second half of the year, is training people in the business. And so my difference making shift has kind of changed a little bit now, and I'm training new photographers. And so I'm helping them to make a difference in the lives of our clients and in their lives too. You know, these are two amazing women who are learning about not just photography, but the experiences that we provide to our clients. And so is making that mindset shift, helping them transition from the idea that they just take a picture to the experience that they're providing. And now that we have a team of 3 of us photographing and them taking over the reins a little bit more in like the first birthday world, we're able to affect the lives of more people. Because it's not just due to my schedule and my commitments. I now have 3 of us that can go out and photograph more, right? So now more marketing. But what I've really you can't just say do this and then expect people to do what you do inside your brain, which, you know, I've learned that from our members too, right? Like, you know, things that seem so obvious to me when we speak them out loud aren't so obvious to others. And so I'm learning that in the studio with the 2 girls that I am training, and still continuing to train. Like, things that just seem obvious are not so obvious. And so really having to work through systems and trying to break down even more so the formula for the first birthday session and how to set up sets and how to make it seem like a unique experience for every client, but still provide exactly what we need to sell the perfect product to them. Capture all the expressions, get the different scenes, get the 5 images here, the 5 images, like it's a formula, you know, it's an interesting formula that I've always had in my head that I know I need in order to provide that product for a client and that experience for a client. And now creating that into a system that anybody can do and repeat, not just me. So that has been very interesting and a big learning curve for me the second half of the year on how to make that a system that is repeatable and not just in my head. A little bit E-Myth, in a way, but not just the production aspect of things, the creative aspect of things. And so how to create a system around the creativity, or that's a banned word in Brad's mind, but a system around the creativity of the session. And so how to make it a formula and get them to repeat it every single session that they photograph. And photograph it just like I would for the branding of the studio. So it's and I learned a lot in this fourth quarter, the things that I have to work on. And every time something happens, I'm like, oh, that's something else we need to systemize. I didn't think we needed a system around. And so for me, 2024 is going to be a huge system building year to even go more into create, because eventually I know these two aren't going to be with the studio forever, right? So I need to have this in place so that I can easily get somebody else in and get them up and trained in the way of how we photograph a session at Cloud9 and create that Cloud9 experience. So not just the technical, but the emotional, the experience, and all of that we provide to our clients so that it's seamless. Whoever someone gets as their photographer, it doesn't have to be me. And so that's been a huge learning for me and continues to be huge learning for me. And so it's new challenges, and I love it. I love new challenges because I was getting to a point where I'm like, it's the same thing every year. And I was getting to the point where every year I'd start I know we just had the podcast on resolutions and last week, but it was getting to be, 17 years in business. Every year was, okay, we're planning out the same thing. We got ducks, we got this, we got wizards, we got princess, we need another theme. We have Christmas, we have birthday. And it's just a matter of improving a little bit each time every year. But this past year, 2023, knowing I was hiring new photographers and knowing where I wanted to go with the business. And now this year being able to take it is very exciting to me because it's I have new books to read on team building and management and systems. And so it's a whole new set of challenges, which I love. And I feel like I'm in a new phase of business and it's given me new life and new energy as I face the new year, as opposed to just rehashing out the same challenges I've had in the past and making them a little bit better. So I'm loving it. It's been fun. It's a whole set of new challenges. And and I know for some folks, new challenges can bring you down. For me, it gives me energy, and I love trying to overcome challenges. And that's how I do my best work, is trying to overcome something.
And something just came flashing through my head, Janine, as you talked. And it was this, that how do you systemize creativity? Surely they're the opposite, right? And then I start thinking about, well, if you actually think of Janine's brand positioning statement that you're the Disney of child portrait experiences, I went, but Disney do.
Yeah. Disney
but
does.
Yet they keep the magic.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people who are listening who are creative say, no, you can't systemize creativity. What Disney do.
Yeah, Disney does. And what I've learned so far is, specifically talking about the first birthday session, is I've now, and I don't want to get it too much into the weeds, but I have figured out how I can segment that hour session into specific blocks. We have this block where we do this. We have this block where we do this. You have to set the setting right, the lighting right for each of those blocks. And then you work with that baby within that block. What you get is what you get. The expression that baby gives you in that block is the expression, you know what I mean? And so you're working in that block. But if I get this block, this block, this block, and this block, I can sell an album, I can sell a wall collage, and that mom is going to be ecstatic with the experience that she received, right? So to me, it's kind of breaking down the session into blocks. And then you have to do these blocks. And within that block, you have the freedom to be creative with that specific baby and that mom. But as you move from block to block, those blocks have to be consistent to get us what we need.
So I think we'll deep dive this into in another podcast, but I'm interested
definitely
to see your journey away from the management with a whip versus the modern manager too. We haven't talked about this, but I know in the past I sensed that there was a bit of a manager with a whip about you versus the modern manager. So that'll be a great conversation. I look forward to that.
Well, it's funny you say that, and I don't know what that really means, but it's funny because it's hard for me to, I'm like, why can't everybody just do things the way I would do them? And it's I think that might be the old engineer still stuck in me. Like, why can't people just do it the way I said to do it? And so that's been a challenge, but it's a great growth challenge for me. And Jonathan's brought up Craig Ballantyne before, but Pedro Scalia is one of my inspiration points, and I love listening to his journey that he went, because he went through this too with his Fit Body Boot Camp, and he almost lost the entire business because of how he managed. And he realized he had to learn how to change. He had to change how he managed his business and managed his employees and managed his team in order to inspire them. And so that's kind of the journey I'm on, and I'm loving it. It's a new journey. You know, I think I had reached the max of where I was going to go where I was before. And so now I'm on a new path and soaring to different places and different heights. And it's been a fun challenge.
Well, I've changed a lot how I manage our businesses, but I'm not sure I inspire anybody, but I'm working on that. So 2023, my lesson for 2023, I have two of them. And the first lesson, it actually aligns a little bit with Brad's, and it's around gratitude. It's about being grateful for what I have. And the big thing that helped me massively was I started to meditate. And I've got it up to 40 minutes a day now. And the days I don't meditate, Susan says, "You didn't meditate today, did you?" So I don't know what that says about me, but she can sense.
Oh, I wonder if we should start figuring out the days Rhoda meditates or not.
So I miss very few, but she tends to notice the days that I do miss. Yeah, but that's interesting. But that has given me a much better control of my mindset, I guess, is what I'm saying. And control is the wrong word, but just a healthier mindset, and to be grateful for what you have rather than looking at the gap. And the second piece, of course, is I think the journey we've been on as a team, you know, to take what we believe and actually be able to turn it into something that's easier for people to understand. Because there's a lot of jargon in the world, right, around, you know, make your client a hero, but what does that mean? You know, and I actually think we've nailed it as a team with the difference maker revolution, and that's the future for our industry. And we've talked about that on the podcast before. And that, you know, it's important. We believe that everyone wants to live their passion. And when you are a photographer using the art and science of photography, true down underneath in here, you know, you want the work that you create to mean something. And the best way to produce work that means something is to become a difference maker to people. So I'm excited for 2024 and the journey we are on to, the revolution's already ignited, right? But just to fast track it, that we reach that tipping point and it becomes the future it becomes the present of our industry, because it is the future right now. Yeah, so that's me.
Interesting lessons for 2024.
It's very diverse.
Doing for the sake of doing is pointless unless you have an underlying reason why.
Oh, I remember my point. It was about delayed gratification, and that it's important to do something today to get a result, not right now, but in a week or in a month or in a year. Delayed gratification is very, very important. And there was a psychological study that I studied back when I was in college, and still is now I suppose one of the main things you can teach children to ensure they have a more successful life, whatever that means is how the study determined. But they took groups of children over several decades and studied them, and the ones who understood and delayed gratification at a really early age had generally much more success and happiness in their lives than children who didn't. And they conducted that test with jelly beans. And I'm going to leave the room, here's a jelly bean. If you don't eat that jelly bean, when I come back in the room, you can have 3. And all the children who've grown up, who didn't eat that jelly bean and ate the 3 when he came back in, all have lived happier, healthier lives.
That's interesting. I've heard stuff about this study too. And actually, Erin's school, it's one of their core foundations is delayed gratification. And she's in it's a K through 12 school. And they have specific things that they have built into the curriculum over the different grades that they have. There's certain things that only fourth graders can do. But every kid in kindergarten through third grade knows what happens in fourth grade, and they don't get it until then, like the specific thing, or they have and they get these different. It's built in, and it's very interesting. And the headmaster talks specifically about delayed gratification and what an important component is of a child's education. So it's interesting.
There.
Yeah.
We've got another podcast topic for 2024.
Excellent. This is the beauty of the beginning of the year. We have these discussions and then it inspires us. Are you writing these down, all these podcasts that we've come up with as we've been talking?
I wouldn't call Brad's thing a counterpoint. It's a supporting point rather than a counter.
But it's important. Look, how many times do we see that? I think I think this is a great podcast that Brad brought up, because how many times do we see the members of the Fully Booked Photographer try something on Monday and it's not working by Tuesday and they throw up their hands and they're like, it's never going to work. I'm done. I give up. And it's not necessarily what you do on Monday that's going to work on Tuesday, And so it is, oh gosh, wow. I know we're at the end of the podcast. We can't keep talking about it, but I love it.
And stop looking for silver effing bullets. They don't exist.
Now I feel like I have to go home and give James a jelly bean and tell him not to eat it until I come back in the room for 3.
Tell
Well,
him
it's
if he
interesting
doesn't
because
eat
video
it.
games now, there are certain video games that work on that delayed gratification as well, as opposed to instant gratification, because that's a problem with video game kids, is they want the instant gratification. And so, anyways, but yeah. Wow, that could be a really good podcast.
So, Jonathan, there's no instant gratification in marketing, right? But there is solutions to help you be consistent with your marketing, to be consistently fully booked. And we call it the MIFKI.
Oh, the MIFKI, the wonderful MIFKI. We need to get a song made about the MIFKI. MIFKI, MIFGE, stands for Most Incredible Free Gift Ever. And yes, Ronan, you're right, because like we discussed today, it all starts with figuring out what you want to achieve, what type of business do you want to run, and the foundation to that is figuring out your ideal client, then figuring out how your advertising strategy relates to that ideal client, then implementing that advertising strategy, getting the leads, turning them into conversations, having wonderful conversations, qualifying, creating quality bookings, and creating quality clients. And the MIFKI is going to help you to do that. So when you say maybe and you subscribe to a free 30-day trial of the Fully Booked Engine, the most amazing marketing platform on the planet for photographers, is going to help you fast track your marketing success more than any other software out there, because it helps you to quickly implement our ad strategy that has now generated, excluding the mentors, our members, probably over $3 million and counting.
Way more.
Probably way more. I'm understating. I love to understate. I always understate. But anyway, all you have to do is say maybe. Subscribe to a free 30-day trial of the Fully Booked Engine. We're going to give you access to the Fully Booked Challenge training, the Fully Booked Challenge community, and a weekly Zoom call that more people need to leverage with the wonderful mentor team here that's going to help you implement our ad strategy into your business and help you to fast track your marketing and the creation of your version of a successful photography business. So don't wait. Before it's gone, click the link below this video. Yeah, I'm pointing down. Yo, Ralph, up, down, inside out. Yo, link below. Click it, sign up, take action. Stop resting on your laurels. Stop making excuses. This is in your hands. We're here to help. Stop being a wuss. Just do it. Let's go.
All right. On that note, it's bye from me.
Bye from me.
See you, everybody.
See you later. See you inside the MIFKI.